What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of All Elite Review. For today, we're going to be reviewing the episode from this past Wednesday, October the 21st, 2020. Before we get into all that, though, there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. Some points of concern as we head into year number 2 of Dynamite. And don't get me wrong, I mean, AEW has been killing it in its first 2 years of existence. Putting on some great pay-per-views, great Dynamite shows. I mean, for the most part, I haven't been too critical of All Elite Wrestling, but there are a few things that do kind of concern me as we head into year 3 of All Elite Wrestling's existence. There's a couple of things of note. First of all, AEW Dark. You know, they've been, it's basically become a showcase for indie talents who kind of don't have anywhere to go right now because of the whole COVID-19 deal. You know, because there's still a lot of indie promotions that are still shut down. So AEW's basically been giving them a chance to showcase their talents on AEW Dark, you know, giving them their own entrances and all that good stuff. And I like that they do that. The problem is, the match count for these AEW Dark shows have been going up and up and up and up, you know, where it's like 11 shows, or 11 matches, then 14 matches, you know, and it's like, holy shit. And then this past week, we had 16 matches on AEW Dark, and at this point, it's too much. I mean, I can understand, you know, giving these guys an opportunity, but there comes a point in time where you gotta cut it off, because it's like, I mean, as far as the number of matches on a single show, I mean, 16 matches on a single show, you know, I mean, holy shit. I mean, it was longer than an episode of Dynamite. You know, and it becomes the point of oversaturation, you know. I mean, they had more than enough content to have maybe 2 or 3 episodes of Dark, to be honest. You know, of course, it's the only thing they can really do until they get their, you know, second show on network television. Apparently, it's going to be an hour show. Cody Rhodes kind of hinted at that a little bit, that it's going to be a 1-hour show and not an extra hour of Dynamite. So there's that. But yeah, it's just becoming a point of oversaturation as far as Dark is concerned. I think they could cut it back just a little wee bit. I think 9 matches would probably be the most I would do, and maybe 3 for each division: the men's division, the tag team division, and another topic of discussion is the women's division. There's no question that the women's division is definitely the weakest point for AEW right now. And my question is, why should that be? I mean, the AEW women's division is loaded with talent, but they're underutilized right now, and it's just fucking ridiculous. You know, they only have 1 match a week right now on Dynamite, and that's just unacceptable to me. Especially since WWE has long outgrown that. Even WWE has outgrown that. You know, so the fact that AEW is only featuring 1 women's match per week right now is fucking stupid. And on that note, out of 16 total matches on AEW Dark this past week, only 2 were women's matches. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's absolutely fucking ridiculous. So out of 22 total matches between Dark and Dynamite, 3 were women's division matches. Unacceptable. That's just unacceptable to me. Optimally, I would love to see on Dynamite, you know, 6 matches and 2 for each division. 2 men's matches, 2 tag team matches, and 2 women's matches. I mean, you could switch it up every now and then, but I'm just saying, like, in general, you know, and then work a show around that. You know what I mean? Give everybody a chance to shine. You know, this whole not giving, you know, the women's division any time to develop bullshit has got to come to an end. That's just the bottom line. And the last bit of concern is injuries. There have been quite a few injuries this past week in AEW, in particular on this show. Ray Phoenix injured himself in his match against Pentagon when he did a head scissors and off the middle turnbuckle, and actually landed kind of awkwardly on his back, high on the back of his head and neck. And as a result, he had to forfeit his win over Pentagon, which we'll be getting to in a minute, due to injury. And then I guess during the four-way tag team main event, which I didn't catch at first. But apparently Alex Reynolds got knocked out legitimately after a double team move from Private Party, to the point where Butcher and the Blade had to drag him over to their corner and tag him out. So I didn't catch that at first, but apparently he was legitimately knocked out. Fortunately, it sounds like he is doing all right. He just got knocked cold. He hasn't suffered any ill effects, so that's good. But yeah, that's a bit of a scary moment. But then apparently it was reported that during this past Thursday's TV tapings for this coming episode of Dynamite, Abaddon, who was scheduled to go against Tay Conti, apparently suffered a serious injury during that match that resulted in the match having to be stopped immediately. And she actually had to be taken to a local hospital. So, that kind of sucks, because it seemed like she was starting to really get a push. I mean, she's only lost one match, and that was in her debut months ago against Hikaru Shida on an episode of Dark, back when we actually had crowds. But apparently, she was scheduled to be, in a match against Tay Conti, and there was the details are kind of scarce, but all we know is that she suffered some kind of injury, and it was serious enough to stop the match and have to send her to the hospital. So, that's the other thing about the women's division. They've just been plagued with injuries. Chris Statlander, she went on record saying that she might be out for another 8 months. Maybe another 8 months before she can get back in the ring. Britt Baker was injured for a bit earlier this year, but thankfully now she's back. But yeah, injuries have been a bit rough on AEW these past couple weeks, to say the least. But those are the three main points of concern. And that's what it is. It's concern. It's not like super hard criticism, even though I did go a little hard on the women's division. But I mean, you could do more with the women's division. I mean, look at what WWE does. I mean, say what you want about WWE, but I mean, at least they feature their women's division more than once in a single week. I mean, if you're that hard up, to not be able to put the women's division on Dynamite, then here's a novel concept. How about you give them their own YouTube show? Because, I mean, when they had that Women's Tag Team Cup, I mean, it was getting some pretty solid views over there, when they had it on Monday nights. So, why don't you give them their own slot, on either Tuesday or Thursday. Thursday preferably, because I think Impact is on Tuesdays. Remember, supposed to be correctly. So give them their own show on Thursday, and you have AEW Dark on Tuesday, Dynamite on Wednesday, and then, a women's division show on Thursday. There you go. And you don't have to worry about time constraints or any of that shit. Just my feeling on it. But let's go ahead and get into this review. This show is basically centered around the Eliminator tournament to determine the new number one contender for the World Championship, which will take place further down the road. And the finals will take place at Full Gear in a couple weeks. The first match featured Wardlow against Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy used his quickness to stay one step ahead of Wardlow, but Wardlow hit a nice buckle bomb into the ring post, which did not look fun at all. Then he hit a gut-wrench powerbomb on Jungle Boy for a 2 count. Jungle Boy hit some drop kicks and a tope suicida, and a nice springboard tornado DDT for a 2 count. But as Jungle Boy went to the top rope to go for a maneuver, Wardlow kips up, which is amazing for a man his size. But Jungle Boy hits a nice avalanche Frankensteiner and hits a flying double knee drop from the top rope. Only got a 2 count though. But Wardlow hits an F10 on Jungle Boy from the ramp back into the ring, and then gets back into the ring and hits one more for good measure for the 3 count and the victory. I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. Good opening match. And then they showed a video package of after the previous Dynamite went off the air. Eddie Kingston was going on an impassioned promo calling Moxley a sellout and saying that he will make Moxley quit pro wrestling, which led to Moxley demanding an I Quit match for the world title at Full Gear. So we're going to have our first ever I Quit match at Full Gear. And the only way the match can end is if one wrestler says I quit. Yeah, that's going to be brutal. Moxley talks about his friendship with Kingston and how he's not going to apologize for his success, and he says he's either going to get his friend back or end him doing so. The next match was pretty interesting because it featured Sonny Kiss against Kenny Omega in another quarterfinal match. This was originally slated to be Joey Janela, but he came into contact with someone who had COVID-19, and out of precaution has isolated himself and had pulled himself out of the tournament. So Sonny Kiss got his spot instead. There was a very elaborate entrance, a bombastic entrance by Kenny Omega, hinting at signs of a heel turn, and then you see these two ladies come out and they're carrying brooms. I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, the Cleaner is making his appearance in AEW. It was definitely a tweenerish type of deal because, I mean, he did still come out to his regular entrance music and stuff like that, but there was definitely signs of the Cleaner in this match, because as soon as the match began, he hits a V-trigger and a one-winged angel for the squash win. And I'm like, damn. And then that face afterwards, that is a memeable expression, to say the least. And it's like, yep, the Cleaner is coming out at long last. You know, and I know there were some people that were kind of poo-poo about, you know, Sonny Kiss getting squashed so quickly. Let's just be completely real here. Sonny Kiss is fucking garbage. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And, oh, by the way, before anybody decides to throw that in my face, this has nothing to do with his character or how he presents himself, you know, as a wrestler. If, you know, that's his deal, you know, if that's the mannerisms and stuff that he wants to do, so be it. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But as a wrestler, there's just nothing there. I mean, wrestling-wise, it's just, you know, there's just nothing there for me. You know, so this match could not have gone any other way than Kenny Omega squashing his ass. You know, and I know there are some fans of Sonny Kiss that are not going to like that, but tough shit. The dude, there is no reason whatsoever that I can see that Sonny Kiss should be competing for any championship whatsoever. And that's just the reality of it. But backstage, Schiavone tries to interview Orange without much success. He's just kind of, you know, nonchalant and all that other shit. Cody interview hints that the AEW TNT title match between himself and Orange Cassidy would have an added stipulation, which we would find out would be a lumberjack match. Okay. And then we have another interview. We have a backstage segment with Kingston talking about how he had to become a bastard to basically get to where he is. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he basically had to become a scumbag in order to get to where he is today. Then, of course, we had the next Eliminator tag team, or the Eliminator tournament match between Rey Fenix and his brother Pentagon, and this would have been a 5-star match if not for one or two singular botches that happened in this match. Both of them were going fast-paced right at the start of this match. Pentagon had a super kick countering Fenix's springboard. Fenix hit a nice tornado to the outside, which looked really nice. Pentagon counters Fenix's rope block by pulling the top rope down because, you know, these two know each other really well because, you know, they are brothers. So there you go, real-life brothers. Fenix hit a nice roundhouse kick, but Pentagon counters a handstand with a super kick. Penta had a nice middle rope sling blade, which was a nice little touch-up on his sling blade. Fenix hit the avalanche head scissors, which actually looked really good, but had that awkward landing. And he was seen, you know, he was kind of talking with Aubrey Edwards while in the middle of that, you know, because it did look like it rattled him a little bit, rung his bell. And then Pentagon went for this like awkward looking, looked like a diamond dust type of move, but it was just badly botched. I don't know what the hell that was. I mean, that immediately took it out of a 5-star match, which is where this match was going. But Fenix seemed to shake off the cobwebs, because he had a nice super kick and a Spanish fly for a 2 count, which was nice. So, I mean, for what it was worth, he shook off the cobwebs and finished the match. Penta hit a nice push-up powerbomb for a 2 count and a nice arm breaker. Then Pentagon was going to go for something to finish Phoenix off, and Phoenix countered into a Canadian Destroyer for the 3 count. and the victory. It was a very nice match, other than the scare, with the off the head scissors and that botch. This is a damn good match, and definitely the match of the night. I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. Then we had another Eliminator tournament single match between Colt Cabana and Hangman Adam Page. Both start trading elbows. Page hit his big boot and standing shooting star press for a 2 count. Page with a springboard lariat and pescado for a 2 count, typical Adam Page. Page hit his fall away pump handle clutch for a 2 count. Colt with a nice head scissors takedown. Page with a German suplex pin for a 2 count, so he did the bridge. Colt pushes Page off the top rope onto the apron and then hits a running splash on the apron. But Page hit a pop-up powerbomb for a 2 count. And then Page hit a buckshot lariat after faking Colt out for the 3 count and the victory. And I gave this match 3 stars out of 5. Then we had Taz with his entourage on the ramp and complaining about, Will Hobbs, not answering, will he join Team Taz or not. And then, of course, Darby Allin, who says, and he was talking about how Darby Allin's getting a TNT Championship match, and how he was pulled aside and said, hey, if Ricky Starks would have beat Darby Allin, then Starks would have been in line for the TNT title match. So, this will be Darby Allin's first opportunity at the TNT title, but probably considering how things look, I would say that Darby Allin's going to be this is going to be his 3rd opportunity at Cody Rhodes, and let's be honest here, Darby needs a big win. And winning the TNT title, I think, would be a big deal. And then next up was the Debonair, the steak dinner between Y2J and MJF, which devolved into them quarreling over how they wanted their steak, and then it went into like a Broadway musical with like dancers and shit like that. And it's just like, these two, they could take a turd and polish it into gold. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And apparently this coming Wednesday they're going to have a Inner Circle Town Hall meeting to determine if they want to have MJF join the Inner Circle. And then next we had our obligatory women's match in its usual spot on the card, next to last, between Britt Baker and Kylan King. I mean, who's basically been their, Lee Johnson of AEW, the perennial jobber to the stars. Even though Kylan is, from what I've seen, a pretty talented wrestler, and the fact that they just use her as cannon fodder just makes no sense to me. There was some good mat wrestling to start. Baker hit a curb stomp, where she grabbed both arms into the curb stomp. Baker hit a flatliner into the middle turnbuckle. King hit a nice roundhouse kick, but Baker then hit a sling blade, a DDT, and a fisherman neck breaker. And all of them look really nice. I mean, there's no question that Baker's in-ring performances can be a bit inconsistent at times. This was one of those cases where it was really good. I mean, she hit all of her moves really, really nicely. Including the sling blade, which she has some trouble with sometimes. But she did hit it nicely, hit a nice DDT, and that fisherman neckbreaker looked devastating. Hit a true curb stomp, which looked a lot like Seth Rollins' curb stomp. And then, of course, got her lockjaw after putting on her glove, of course, for the submission win. I give it 3.25 stars out of 5. And then we get a video package of Darby Allin with Steve-O from Jackass. And Darby Allin does a Jackass-style stunt called I think he called it the body bag roll-in or something like that, where he was on top of a half pipe, got into a body bag, and basically rolled down to the bottom. And then when he got out of it, he's like, I'm winning that TNT title. Which basically shows that he has no fear. Then, of course, we had our main event, which was the Fatal 4-Way number 1 contenders tag match between the number 4 ranked Butcher and the Blade, the Beaver Boys of Alex Reynolds and John Silver of the Dark Order, Private Party, and the number 1 ranked Young Bucks. Of course, this was the match where Reynolds got knocked out by a double team move from Private Party. But he did. I think they said he did come to, and he was able to finish the match. So that was good. But Reynolds and Nick Jackson start the match. Silver quickly tagged in. Private Party hit a super kick party on the Young Bucks, kind of a little bit of payback from the previous week. Quinn hit a nice shooting star press on Blade for a 2 count. Sammy Guevara comes out and attacks Matt Hardy. who had come out with Private Party because he had been basically acting as their manager for a while now. And those two are going to have an Elite Deletion match at Full Gear, and hopefully finally bring this long-standing rivalry to an end, to a definitive end, because I think they didn't really get their definitive end at All Out. So they want to try to do it at Full Gear. Butcher and the Blade start dominating the middle part of the match. The Beaver Boys with their crazy combo on Quinn for a 2 count, which was really nice. Private Party hit their silly string on Reynolds. I think this is around this point where the Reynolds getting knocked out occurred. Butcher and the Blade hit their Blackheart finisher on Cassidy, but only got a 2 count before it was broken up. Nick Jackson hits his martial arts on the Beaver Boys, and then hit their Indie Taker on Quinn for a 2 count. Then they try to go for the Meltzer driver, but Cassidy reverses Matt into a victory roll, similar to what happened to the Young Bucks when they were in that tag team title tournament last year. But this time around, Matt reverses Cassidy into a victory roll of his own to get the 3 count and the victory, although it did look like Cassidy's shoulders came up near the end because Matt rolled a little too far back and pulled him up. But needless to say, the Young Bucks get the win, and I give this match 3.75 stars out of 5. So you would think that we are going to get the Young Bucks FTR match at Full Gear, which, you know, kind of makes you think, why would they do that when they don't have much of a crowd? I mean, considering how much of a build-up that this match has had, you know, the inevitable collision between the Young Bucks and FTR, you know, that's been years in the making. I mean, you would think that, you know, they would wait until a crowd comes around to do this match. Well, I think they were teasing it. They wanted to keep the Young Bucks strong with a win here, but what I think is they wanted to tease it, but put it off at the same time. So I don't think they're going to have it at Full Gear, despite the fact that they won this match. Reason being is because after the match, FTR come down and offer a beer to the Young Bucks, who slap it out of their hand. And then a masked figure, which was obviously Tully Blanchard, comes with a chair and attacks the Young Bucks. FTR then attacks the Young Bucks themselves, with FTR smashing Matt's leg with a chair. So they're probably going to write Matt off, probably with like a broken leg or something like that, to prevent the Young Bucks from challenging for the titles at Full Gear. So in all likelihood, it'll probably be Private Party, I would say, that's going to be put into that match, I would say, or they'll probably have like a like another match to determine who the number one contender is if the Young Bucks are unable to compete at Full Gear due to Matt's quote unquote injury. But I honestly think that's the direction they're going to go in, because they wanted to keep the Young Bucks strong, to imply that the showdown is coming at Full Gear, but then they're going to put it off a little bit in storyline, you know, until they're able to get some people back into that arena to be able to watch it. Because, I mean, that's not exactly a match you want to give to a half-empty arena, especially one that's been years in the making. So there's that. And that was your episode of AEW Dynamite. Another good, solid showing, and of course, centered around a tournament. And there's one thing that seems to work well with wrestling, it's tournaments, and it makes things a lot more interesting. Although the structure of this tournament makes it seem a little predictable, because you have Hangman on one end of the bracket and Kenny Omega on the other, and you know, you seem to have that inevitable collision at Full Gear. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, sometimes that's what you want, because that's the story that you need to tell. You know, everybody's been expecting this big collision, you know, this big explosion between Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega, and honestly, it'll be a bit disappointing if we don't get that at Full Gear, because I think that's going to be a banger of a match. So, especially if the cleaner version of Kenny Omega is actually coming out, because we saw glimpses of it in this show, and yeah, I think we all want to see the cleaner come out in full. And I think it would come, and if that's the case, and if he wins the number one contenders match, and I think Jon Moxley is going to retain, I think they're going to come full circle with Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley, because remember, they had that nasty feud last year, and they had that big match at Full Gear, the lights out match. So I think it would be cool for that to come full circle and have Kenny Omega get one back over Jon Moxley and be the one to take the world title off of Moxley, probably at Revolution in February. But that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think it'll be interesting. But that's going to do it. My final rating for this show, it was a pretty good show overall. A couple of scary instances in terms of injuries. But overall, I mean, it was still a pretty good show overall. So my final rating, I'll give it a solid 7.25 out of 10. So another thumbs up from me. It's just, I mean, AEW has been doing good, but like I said, there's still lots of room for improvement, especially with the women's division. You can feature it a lot more because you have some talented female wrestlers on that roster. I mean, it was reported that Eva Lise has signed a full-time deal with AEW, so she is officially All Elite. They haven't said anything about that, which kind of sucks, but I mean, yeah, and if she's All Elite, then I would imagine that Diamante is as well. So you got you have a great roster of women's wrestlers. You got Hikaru Shida, Nyla Rose is pretty good. Britt Baker, even though she can be a bit inconsistent with her in-ring work, her heel work has been excellent. You have Eva Lise, you have Diamante. I mean, you have a lot of pretty damn good women's wrestlers on this roster, that you can build this division around. So we need to feature them a little bit more as we head into year 3 of AEW. Just my thoughts on that. But that's going to do it for this edition of All Elite Review. A bit longer than usual, but again, I had some extra things that I wanted to get off my chest. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. See you later. You better like and subscribe or face the consequences. You have been warned.